Keya. So Keya is is the founder and principal consultant at Elie, an international consulting firm providing research, advisory, and support to businesses and scholars in private and public sectors. She was raised on a multi-generational farm in New Jersey. Dr. Elie's work is deeply rooted in community, lineage, and collective responsibility. She earned a BA in psychology from North Carolina A&T State University, becoming the third generation in her family to attend HBCU. There, she conducted neuroimaging research using an EEG and contributed to state and federally funded research for RTI International and North Carolina Department of Health. She pursued a PhD in psychology at the University of Cambridge. Following her doctorate, Dr. Elie furthered her expertise at a national consulting firm where she advised executives on policy evaluation and multi-site large-scale initiatives. When a community can convince her to stop working, she enjoys sleeping, weightlifting, going to the beach, and golfing. Guys, if you can, and I've tried to summarize, but if you can, please give a warm welcome to Keya in the chat. Keya, the floor is yours. I'll try and present your slides in a moment.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for that. I know the bio is long, but the life has been long in these many years. Hi everyone. Yeah, like Sage said, my name is Dr. Keya Elie of Elie and I'm really excited to chat today about finding the right supervisor and developing the research proposal. So yeah, we're gonna kind of get into that when we see the slides. So
Yeah,
not
slides are
sound very
coming.
American.
Yeah, slides are coming up. Just
Okay,
one
cool.
second. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Take your time.
Okay. Let me know when you can see these slides. No. Yeah.
Loading on my end. Let me see.
No.
No, I don't know if anyone else could.
Let me try
I
that
can
again.
start talking and then we can just
Yeah.
hop into it. Does that
Yes,
help for
please.
time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So today I will be reviewing, as I said before, two topics, finding the right supervisor, developing the research proposal. So as Sage said, my background is in research, design, development, consulting, that kind of thing. So I really come at it from a mixed methods approach for a lot of people, and also looking at it theoretically, but also implementation wise. Okay. So this is me going through the slides as well. So we'll just hop right into supervisor selection. The way I've designed this is looking at it from five categories. And this is how I kind of talk about it with some of my clients. This is how I approached it as well when I was applying to Cambridge. I'm not a very serious person. We're all smart. So I'm just like very chill about it. I applied to Cambridge because I like Harry Potter and I wanted to be in England. That was it. So, but finding the supervisor, that I was very, very particular about. Going into Cambridge, that was my third time applying for a PhD. The second time I got into Columbia, I got my master's. But you have to be very particular about who you work under because I'm like, that's mom and dad for the next 2 years, 5 years, right? So the five categories are alignment, capacity, lifestyle, timing, and connection. And I know that other speakers have spoken a little bit about this, but I'm going to go in detail on slide 5. And Sage, I can try to share if that would help as well. I don't know if that would.
Yeah, let me give you hosting permission so you can
Okay.
share on your own. Okay, just one second.
Yeah, no problem. And so while we're pulling that up, yeah, just
Yeah, you should be able to share now.
Mhm. Okay. Hopefully you all aren't seeing too much in my background. They can see? Yep.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So, as I was saying, finding the right supervisor, breaking it down into five categories. So, looking at alignment, the first thing I would suggest is understanding your interests really, really well. Me personally, I'm a generalist. I'm interested in everything. So I had some trouble with that, and I can do everything. So it was really difficult. Like, who do I work under? And so I ended up finding someone who hit all of my target interests at Cambridge. So you want to kind of map your expertise to theirs. That's how you first look at it. And you're looking at the website, their publications. You have to do a bit of digging and parsing through. So that's why people are saying you should do this in advance, a year or two, and take that time to really understand yourself, one, and then who you want to work with. Another part of alignment is looking and taking inventory of the team members. So let's say you find the right supervisor, you need to look at the team because, like I said, this is mom or dad, and then this is the cousins or the brothers or sisters, right, that you're with for several years. You want to make sure that you fit into them, not just academically. Um, Sage, am I okay to admit people to the room?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Mhm. So you want to make sure you align with them academically, but also socially. I know we talked about the power of friendship in the last meeting, or the last speaker, and that's really important. And so that's why you want to talk to people, get to know them, make sure your personality aligns with them as well. And I'm remembering the culture. So I studied in the US and the UK. I kind of knew about the UK culture, but my first time arriving there was like the first week I moved in. So I'm like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand, the different terminology. But I probably should have did a little bit of research, but I am an experience-driven person. I wanted to just go in, as is. And so from that, I learned a lot. Cultural differences, even though I'm American, the UK is quite similar for a lot of people, but not working wise. I was working during lunch and they told me to stop. So it can be a little bit different. And you want to look at capacity as well with the supervisors. So you find the person, you find the team, and then you look at the capacity by reaching out to them. So we talked about cold calls, we talk about like a friend of a friend, someone that you're currently working with, one of the older folk. Do they know the older folk in the UK? And usually they do. You want to know, are they accepting students? Because advisors or supervisors do not accept students every year. And some people make that mistake of assuming that this supervisor is going to take people in, and they've already decided several months ago they're not taking anyone. So you just wasted money and time on an application that will never go through. So you need to understand that from the jump or from the starting point, are they taking students? How many? Where's the money? Those conversations have to happen in advance before you start spending time and energy on an application. Here's another time point or thing to consider, which is age and time point of the supervisor. Some are going on sabbatical. They might be listed on that website, but they're not actually at the university. It's like they're on an island somewhere. So you need to ask those questions, like, are they going on sabbatical? Because that could disrupt your progression, especially as a PhD student, right? So sabbatical, retirement, are they new? Because they could be getting their bearings at the university. You want to think about that when you're selecting a supervisor. And then are they too busy for you? A lot of these people are experts. And honestly, that's how some people make their money, traveling and speaking and partnering in other countries. You have to think about that and the time and attention you want as a student and how that would impact you. Yeah, so that's definitely a factor. Then we're going to go to lifestyle. Work-life balance for me personally is very important. Like I said, I'm a very chill person, even though my work is very intense. You work when your supervisor works. So you need to take the time when or if you get in contact with them before you submit the application to understand, does that map on, right? So like I said, everyone is smart. You're in this space, you're with the people already. You know that, right? But I was doing dinners at my supervisor's house. You spend time with these people. You want to make sure that their life makes sense with your life. So one, it doesn't stress you out too much. That's important. Um, and I want to say, I was skip to timing. Yeah, we talked a bit about that in other talks. Before you apply, I say 1 to 2 years, start doing this process. But that's not the reality for everyone. Some people don't know and you just go in. So 6 to 8 months the least. And personally, I always tell people, You can't go through the front door, you go through the window. The way I got in was I didn't even email the supervisor at first because it was like, everybody's emailing her. I'm going to talk to everyone around her. They're going to hear my name, they're going to know me. I'm knocking on windows. I'm like, I'm coming over here, whether y'all like it or not. You do have to have a certain level of audacity and intentionality around one, getting their attention and getting to know them, which needs to be truly, um, dang, Sage, 8 more minutes. Okay, I'm getting yelled at. I'll hurry up. So you really need to know the see, I lost my train of thought. You need to know, but basically you need to know and understand like the dynamics and like what's happening in the lab and things like that ahead of time before you apply. And so I do want to get to the research part because that's really important. I feel like people cover the connection piece. There's a typo there. I'll fix that. So you want to have like a mutual contact in the lab. That would be really helpful, right? Attend a talk of theirs, go to a networking event, right? You want to be genuine. That's where I was going with that. Supervisors are people too. Don't put those people on a pedestal, okay? Like you want to get to know them as people and they want to get to know you as people. So you need to integrate that or lead with that because like you said, somebody's taking you into their home essentially and they want to make sure that you're not going to destroy things. So yes, that's important. All right. So for the next 8 minutes, I will talk about research proposal development as quick as I can. I wanted to say that people talk about it from a very like tactical standpoint. I think personally you need to start with your mind and body right, right? You need to understand your writing cadence and your reading cadence because that's what's required in this process, even in the proposal like development stage. Have you eaten? What did you eat? Does it make sense for you? Are you sitting in the right place to write? Are you writing at a certain time of day? And establishing that because that will actually help you in your PhD and your master's program because there's a lot of independent work, especially at Cambridge, compared, I would say, to the US. So think about that. All right. So two approaches to developing a research proposal. I apologize. I was very Southern as well. Okay. I think it's easier to show you up. We're going to go here. Okay. So Cambridge, and I'm assuming Oxford as well, is from what I've heard, and just from people I've talked to, very theory based, whereas my experience has been in the US, we're more so practice based. But either way, you need to start with a container or a foundation, some theoretical framework, and that could be a actual theory or a framework which offers you more flexibility. And frameworks are used on the more practice side, implementation side, like consulting, that kind of thing. Theory, long-standing, old, and Siri just turned it on. I was talking to her. But yes, theory is very long-standing, old, a lot of evidence behind it, and you do reading in like books, journals, peer-reviewed things, right? So I wanted to preface that, and then we kind of go into these like 7 key steps of designing a research study. Making sure you understand your research questions is imperative, and pre-registering. So I want to put out the resource, the OSF, which is don't get me lying to y'all. But you're pre-registering your research study. It's like the Open Science Foundation. That's what it's called. So Google that. That will help you really outline and think through submitting your research before you have this conversation. You need to understand your hypotheses, where those are coming from in the literature. You need to know what people have done, and you need to know what people are doing, and you need to be able to talk to the gaps that you could fill. That is very important, especially when designing your proposal. And especially with these supervisors, they are the people building out the literature. So, you do the literature review, which I said, what have people done? What are they doing? Where can you fill the gaps? Formulate the hypotheses based off of, what do you think will happen and why do you think that? Knowing the why in the literature and pulling from that is very important in your field. And then choosing your methodology. So I said before, I'm a mixed methods researcher. I prefer to do structural equation modeling, some quant heavy things, very good at that, and then doing some interviewing, right, for breadth and depth, because I want to be as expansive and cover things as possible, right? So you need to decide on how you're going to do it and talk about the why. That is what people are going to probe you on in these spaces. You can copy a study if you want to and just say, I'm going to do this because such and such did this. But they're going to ask you, why are you doing it? Like, why is that new? Why is that novel? And you better be able to answer that. And that is the difference between like certain levels, especially when you're at a PhD. You need to be able to answer that. So talk about that in your proposal and your meetings with the potential supervisor. Collecting data or evidence, depending on your field. You need to figure out and decide in advance how you're going to do that, the timelines and where and how and what samples. That's really important. Think about the context. I usually work with low SES or socioeconomic status students and families in the US. Where was I going to find that in Cambridge? Okay, like that. So we struggled with that, but I made a way. I'll send out my thesis if people want to read that and figure that out. But you have to think about where you are and if that sample is accessible to. That's very important. And so, um, how you're going to analyze the data, look into that and why. There's a lot of theory behind math, and people leave that out. They just say, I'm going to do regression. Well, why are you doing regression? Okay. And then writing up and delivering the findings before I get yelled at by Sage, I like feel it coming. But so you want to write up, how you think this could go, right? Designing a study and proposal is very similar. You just want to design the study, really. And obviously, you haven't conducted it. Someone said earlier it will probably change. It will. So don't get attached. So you want to say where you're flexible and how the supervisor can feed the gaps or fill the gaps for you. That's really important because you're asking them, hey, can you do this for me? You need to tell them what you can do for them too, right? And what they can do for you and be very clear about that. So you want that in your write up and you want it very structured, which I wish I could go over, but that's the best way to end that there. These are the common questions that people have, understanding the role. I was like, I was working full time before I did my PhD. And so I didn't honestly, I was like, I didn't need a PhD. So I wanted one, but I didn't understand the role of the supervisor. So what I learned from that experience is really like, they have resources, information, access to certain spaces you do not because they are senior in the field and guidance, right? I was expanding my expertise in qualitative research, and she was helping me move things around so I could get that, right? That's what they're for in some spaces. So filling the gap in the literature, but you're like, this theory is, a jillion years old, right? Like, how do I build on this? The easiest way, in my opinion, is through intersectionality, through the sample characteristics, and through methods, right? Trying novel things. And that's what I had to do personally. Like I said, get a bit creative because the people I wanted to work with were not in the area. So, or there was like a limited amount, essentially. It was really hard to get that sample and doing new methods, but based off of some theory that, makes sense. And you're like, what if my approach is novel or new? Justify always. People are going to ask you why. In the formal halls, they're going to ask you why you do your research. The party's going to ask you why you do your research. You need to have an answer, and that's through the literature usually. All right, next steps. So I don't get yelled at by Sage. So there's 4 research for alignment with through the website, the publications with your supervisor, potential supervisor, and the teammates and the people in the lab in general. You don't want to just narrow and look at them. You want to find the funding that has been spoken about a lot through the college, through the university, and through your department. Key pieces. Third part, draft a proposal. You can do C while A and B are happening, really. Start now, save everything you're writing because it could come back in style for you if you get into that program. And be flexible. We threw out my entire proposal that I came into Cambridge with, and I'm okay with that. I finished. So, and then the last part, contact the supervisor, discuss your work, discuss their work, talk about fit in the lab. Remember, they're human. So are you. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Get to know these people for who they are. That's it.
Thank you, Keya. I thought you were ignoring my reminders towards the end, but but you finished right on time. But that's okay. Uh, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I can see people showing their appreciation. I think you've done justice to the session, being practical. I know Ordinaka built the foundation on A to Z of applying to a PhD, and then you have now gone specifically to writing a research proposal and practical tips on finding a supervisor. And like I said at the start, some of the things you as you also mentioned, some of the tips you've shared are also relevant for master's research student. So at the end of the program, I will get around and speak to the speakers about sharing their slides with the participants. So thank you for that. So, given